The next speaker that I'd like to bring up to the stage is someone who I've known for over 20 years now. He is an expert in functional exercise, and he's going to be speaking to you today about how to train to not just look good, but how to train to feel good. His name is Warren Willams. Let's give him a nice warm round of applause up to the front.
Look good. Most people are driven into the gym to look good. Not to feel good, but to look good. That's the main, kind of like the first thing that drives them, is to look good. But what I'm going to show you in my presentation is how looking good can sometimes make you feel bad. It's all about how you feel, not necessarily how you look. So, we just go to the next page. So, this is the typical fitness model. And when I say fitness model, what I mean is most men train their upper body. Girls know about that because they've got the tiny little legs, big upper body, the He-Man kind of shape. Even though they're trying to try and look good to impress women, the women are telling them, if you build up your legs a little bit, it might actually look a little bit better. But it's still the wrong thing because they're top heavy. So this is typical. They train the front of their body. They train to get a six-pack. They train their chest and their arms. And what that does, it creates a muscle imbalance, because what we say is they have a six-pack but with a naked spine. So they look good in the front but nothing at the back. Yeah? And the typical woman, their goal is to become micro-thin because of media attention. But if you look at functionality, if you were to just look at sport itself, a footballer, a tennis player, in terms of males, they're all around 10, 12 stone. They're not training to be a specific weight. They're not saying, right, in order for me to play tennis, I've got to be 12 stone. They're just playing. And by playing, they are a specific weight. They're all the same weight. And that's the functional weight for you to be good at any sport. The same with any woman. If you look at women in sport, they're typically around a size 10, because that's what's functional for sport and movement. They're not training to say, right, I want to be a size 0 while I'm a goalkeeper. Yeah? So the goal is to be functional, not to specifically train for a look. Okay? So that's the typical fitness model. So if you skip to the next page. Okay, so we're looking at the typical gym stats. So most people join a gym for aesthetics. So aesthetics is how you look, yeah? Rather than functionality. Or even vitality. Now the reason why I say that is because most people, when they go to the gym, their typical day, they go to work. Maybe it's a 9-to-5 job. Once they finish, they're tired. You know, no one leaves work refreshed. You're tired, mentally as well as physically. And then you go to the gym whilst tired, to try and get energy from somewhere. So what you're doing is you're creating a negative, because you're in energy deficit already. Then you go to the gym to put more energy out. Yeah? So you're detraining. It's not a functional byproduct. Okay? 85% of personal trainers, they do not update their training. So once they've got a typical MVQ level 2, which is very basic, they go into the gym and they train people. And when you go to train at the gym, you're imparting your body on that person, assuming they're an expert. Because they've got a button and a badge, and they've got a clipboard, and they may have biceps. So you assume they're an expert. But statistically, most personal trainers don't know anything about exercise. And when I say that, I mean they really just buy bodybuilding magazines. And then they read the magazines, and they train you in the magazines they read. But you could go to the shop, pay £2.50, read that magazine and train yourself. So, because of this, you're basically playing roulette with your body by trusting someone who knows nothing. So as you see here, 95% of all joint pain is caused by muscle imbalance. So when I say joint pain, I'm talking about, you may have a back injury, and statistically 88% of all people have some form of back injury all the time. Whether it's a higher degree or lesser degree. If you sit for a long period of time, the first thing you get up and shake your back out because there's something there, some form of stiffness. So because of this, it's important to make sure when you train to balance the body. So going back to what we were talking about with the males, they overtrain their upper body. So they're creating if you think of it like this, you've got a house with a poor support. You wouldn't build an extension because you break that support. So most men, when they go to the gym, let's say their legs can support 100 pounds and their upper body can support 50 pounds. They get stronger So now their upper body can support 200 pounds, but their legs can still only support 100 pounds. So they create a muscle imbalance. So they create pain. So like I always say, no one gets injured sitting at home watching TV. You don't get fit, but you don't get injured. You get injured with activity. So it's important to make sure that activity is correct, because exercise is like a drug. It's a stimulus on the body. So depending on the type of stimulus that you use, creates the effect. So we're talking about cause and effect. So if you train wrong, you get injured. So this is the one thing that a lot of people in gyms don't realize. Most men need to train like women, and most women need to train like men. Why do I say that? What do most men do in the gym? What sort of area do they typically occupy in the gym?
Weights.
Weights. Women, what area they typically occupy in the gym?
Dances and singing. Dances and singing.
Aerobics, cardio. Yeah. So most men, especially bodybuilders, I'm sure you've all seen bodybuilders, how they walk. Like the Terminator. Stiff, so they have no flexibility. Have you ever seen a bodybuilder run for a bus? No cardio. So they're doing something that is not balanced. And most women, if I touch a dumbbell, I'm gonna look like He-Man. It's far harder for a woman to put on muscle than it is for a man. Testosterone. Far, far harder. So when they look at bodybuilder women and they say, well, look at her. If I touch her, I look like her. First of all, those women are on drugs. Secondly, they're training 6 hours a day most of the time. Yeah. And thirdly, they live in the gym. Yeah. So they're doing about 25 hours a week of bodybuilding. So it's far more important for women to gain strength to support their fluidity and their cardiovascular system. It's far more important for men to have fluidity support their muscular system. So, and most people when they go to the gyms, they think, and they're told by personal trainers, that machines are the safest way to go. But as you see here, 69% of all injuries occur in machines. The reason why this happens is because the body doesn't want to repeat a pattern. You've all heard of RSI, repetitive stress injury. Yeah? If you talk to any carpenter, they'll tell you about that. Yeah, they're constantly doing the same motion. They'll have a shoulder injury because they're repeating a pattern their body doesn't want to. Yeah? So if you do something over and over again, it's repetitive. Machines force you into a fixed pattern of movement, so you can't self-express. So because of that, you create an injury through repetition. Yeah? Also, mentally, you are not engaged in the exercise because the machine does half the work for you. So I've seen people, and you might have seen people in gyms sitting there reading a book doing shoulder press. They're not engaged. And your mind works with the body, as you all know. So that's why most injuries occur on machines. So these are some resistance exercise facts. Resistance machines only use 6 to 8 muscles per muscle group per exercise. So you might get 240 muscles that you're using in an hour. It might seem like a lot, but it's not. 6 to 8 muscles, your body is made up of over 400 muscles. So every machine you're using, you're only using 6 to 8 muscles on each machine. So you do 6 to 8, you run into the next one, 6 to 8. It's a waste of time. Free weights, this is when we're talking about dumbbells, bars, anything where you're having to control your own body. 50 to 80, so now you're actually starting to become more productive. 50 to 80 muscles per exercise. When I say dependent on complexity, if it's something basic like you might be standing there doing an arm curl, it's quite basic, but if you're doing something like you might be doing a shoulder press and a lunge, at the same time it's more complex, so you actually get more muscles involved. So therefore you're increasing productivity. But that's still not enough. Because when you look at neuromuscular stabilization, for those who don't know what that means, neuro from the brain, muscular to the muscle. Stabilization is stillness. So when you look at muscular stabilization, or neuromuscular stabilization, 150 to 200 muscles per exercise versus what you saw with resistance machines, 240 muscles per hour. So when we say per exercise, that's per minute. So most people who are in the gym, if they're in the gym for 2 hours, they're only doing about 26 minutes of actual activity because they're resting. So they may work out for 30 seconds, rest for 2 minutes, their friend talks to them about some film, 5 more minutes, go and get a drink. They're wasting so much of their time, so it's not productive. And they say, oh, I'm not going to go to the gym, it takes so long. No, it takes so long the way you do it, because it's not functional. Yeah? So, as I said, 200 muscles, 30 seconds of work. Now, check this out. This is for women now, this is really important. Resistance exercise offsets osteoporosis. So you all know what osteoporosis is, right? But because most women in gyms have got this kind of information that if you do weight training, you can look like Shiva. They tend to be scared of weights when they need it more than men, because more women suffer from osteoporosis than men. Statistically, 1 in 6 to 8 women suffer from osteoporosis, 1 in 40 men. And the reason why men typically don't suffer from osteoporosis is because they typically do resistance type exercise. Whether it's playing football or rugby, these are all contact sports that create resistance stresses on the body. So to give you another example of that in terms of resistance, because we're not just talking about weights. In tennis, in the serve arm in tennis, male or female, the bone density in the serve arm is 30% thicker than in the other arm. Just because they're hitting resistance against the ball that travels at over 100 miles an hour. So it's not just about lifting up tanks and, it's just resistance on the body. So most of them are very scared of that because of what they've heard that they can achieve. So, resistance exercise, it has to offset osteoporosis is one of the key factors, but only if you lift 1,000 tons a year. 1,000 tons a year. So that works out to lifting about 100 kilograms per workout, if you do it about 2 or 3 times a week. So when you see women in the gym getting those little pebble dumbbells, half a pound, it's not going to cut it. You will not get resistance from this. It has to be at least 70% of the maximum load to get resistance and to offset osteoporosis. If you look at the statistics on the amount of women that need hip surgery versus men, you'll see the difference, because they don't do resistance exercise. Another interesting thing, people think that cardiovascular exercise is the key when it comes to losing weight. It's a big myth and it's wrong. They say because when they sweat, they're losing weight. No, they're not. They're losing fluid. And if it was about sweating, sit in the sauna and read a newspaper. You would sweat more sitting in the sauna for an hour reading the newspaper than training in the gym. So it's not about sweating. So with that in mind, startling facts on cardiovascular exercise. When you do cardiovascular exercise, your metabolic rate, which is the rate at which you burn calories, does not change whilst you do cardiovascular exercise. It doesn't elevate. It pretty much stays the same. You're only burning calories because you're moving. It's not elevated through the exercise, it's because you're moving. If I pick up a table and put it down, I'm expending energy. So the activity creates the use of calories. Okay, so this is kind of what I was alluding to. So when I say duration is far less important than intensity, if you were to walk very slowly for 5 hours, and you say, wow, I worked out for 5 hours. What did you do for 5 hours? I walked very slowly. And if I said to you, okay, I'm going to get you to run 100 meters as fast as you can, and as soon as you finish, run again. The 100 meters maybe 12 seconds, depending on how fast you are. You're saying ball, really fast. Maybe about 12 seconds. It's only 12 seconds, but I guarantee you couldn't do it again straight away. Because the intensity is way up. That challenges your body far more than, I was in the gym for an hour. Because it's not about duration, it's about intensity. So, 2 different enzymes. So, lipogenic enzyme. And this is related to what we're talking about with cardiovascular exercise. This is increased whilst doing cardiovascular exercise. Now the lipogenic enzyme is a fat storing enzyme. So what it means is you become better at storing fat through doing cardio. Imagine that. You become better at storing fat. But most people will say, cardio makes you lose weight. No, it doesn't. It makes you lose muscle. And because you lose muscle, you lose weight. So I want to give you an example that you can understand in a simple way. If I had two cars, one had a 1 litre engine and one had a 5 litre engine, and I put 5 pounds of petrol, and I'm really tired, so only 5 pounds of petrol in each car, which car will be able to travel further than 5 pounds of petrol? The 1 litre, because it burns the least amount of fuel. Now relate that to cardio. When you go in the gym, and you can start jogging, and you can only jog for 5 minutes, and then in 6 months you can jog for an hour, what happens? You become better at storing energy, not burning it. So it's a big myth. So your body becomes better at holding onto fat, because fat produces energy. Muscle burns energy. So going back to those bodybuilders, has anyone ever seen a bodybuilder run a marathon? They can't do it. There's too much muscle, burns too much fuel too quickly. And if any of you know bodybuilders, you'll know that they have to wake up in the middle of the night to eat, because they burn so much fuel. Even in the nighttime, they wake up to replace that lost energy, even at rest. So, the fat burning enzyme, the lipolactic enzyme, is decreased through cardiovascular exercise, which is basically what I was saying. You become better at storing fat. Just think about the next time you go into the gym and you just want to run on the treadmill. Jesus. Okay, go to the next one. So, what is function? So, some people think I actually stuck the balls to the floor. So, functionality. So this is one of our sayings. Posture is a position from which movement begins and ends. You start bad, you end bad. The ideal posture is a state of musculoskeletal balance that protects the muscles and joints from injury. So, when you see older people walking like this, they are being challenged by gravity. So if they did this, they tried to raise their arm, their posture is bound down, so they can't get elevation of their arm, basically through the scapula, so they're not getting range of motion. As the head goes forward, and this is just as a note for people that work at a desk all day, when you're working at a desk, unless it's ergonomically sound desk, it's always going to be like hip height, waist height. So you're going to be like this at a desk. Now think about how long you're at the desk. You may get an hour break. But let's say for 8 hours you're leaning forwards. You're training your system in this way for 8-9 hours a day, times how many days a week. So what you're doing is you're making the muscles in the shorter part of your body stronger. So they pull you into this flexed position. And when you're in this flexed position, you can't breathe. If anybody does CPR, they'll say, bend forward so I can do CPR. They straighten you up. Yeah? So it affects your respiration straight away. Breathing is key. The average person breathes 25,000 times a day. Imagine if your breathing was restricted. That's why posture is important. So if you train for aesthetics, you're training like we're talking about most guys, 6-pack. When you use your 6-pack, you're like this. You end up here. You see bodybuilders walking around like this. Everything's closed down. So they can't breathe. So that's why I say they look good, but they feel terrible. So it's the ability to move over your own base of support is functionality. So in gyms, this is another fact about gyms, 99% of all machines in gyms are what we call sagittal plane. Sagittal plane means front to back. It splits the body in half, front to back. So like arm curl, pushes, squats, that's all front to back. 95% of all injuries are in rotation. So what are you training for? You're training to be strong in a position you don't need to be strong in. So why are you doing it? Okay, so you can't fire a cannon from a canoe. What does that mean? Okay, this is related to stability. Obviously you can't fire a cannon from a canoe because a cannon generates tremendous power. A canoe is too unstable. You can fire a cannon from land because land is stability. says it all. Tension. Look at the tension in this guy. He's not even happy. What is the core? I keep hearing all this stuff about the core. I'm training my core, doing sit-ups. No, you're not. Sit-ups is not training your core. Core is stability. So everybody keeps saying, yeah, this is my core. This is not your core. Your core is everything except your arms and legs. That means your head is part of your core. Ask a personal trainer, I guarantee they'll tell you this is your core. Okay. So everything here, transverse abdominis, multifidus, pelvic floor, pelvic bone, transverse abdominis, head, axial spine, shoulder girdle, pelvic girdle, everything. The arms and legs are appendages. That means they're carried by the body, not the other way around. So what is optimal health? So optimal health, I mean this would actually probably take an hour to explain this, but in summary, this is the hierarchy of survival reflexes in the body. So at the top you see breathing. So like I said, it's 25,000 breaths a day, override everything else. So I've worked with people that had back pain for many years and they've had surgery, it didn't work. Because their problem is the way they breathe. Seems strange, but some people breathe laterally, which means they breathe like this. Imagine breathing like that 25,000 times a day. Imagine what it would do to your back, because you're contracting one side 25,000 times. That overrides any program. Or some people breathe this way. Imagine what effect that will have on your neck and your shoulders. Overrides everything. Mastication, jaw, position. If your jaw is out of alignment, it affects your shoulders because it hinges on your shoulders. So the average person's mouth opens and closes 5,000 times a day. Imagine how important that is. The optic or visual system, if one of your eyes is stronger than the other, 1 in 4 people have a 25% difference in eye strength. Right? You'll notice because when you look for a keyhole, you always go to one eye. Yep. That's your dominant eye. That eye will pull your head out of rotation. If your head rotates one way, your hips have to rotate the other way to counterbalance it. That creates postural problems. The ear, vestibular, balance in the ears affects posture. Cervical spine on the neck affects posture. Emotions, digestion. The last stage is the one that every therapist pretty much works on, which is the slave joints. The slave joints are everything below the head. Shoulders, hips, abdominals, knees, ankles, they're all the slave joints. They're unimportant to the body. You do not need your kneecaps to survive. You need your breathing to survive. You need emotion to survive. You need the cervical spine, you need the neck, you need the jaw to eat to survive. Most people train the slave joints. Most therapists work on you with the slave joints. They don't look at the higher systems. So optimal health is understanding your posture, the way you breathe, the way you move, the way you think, the way you act, the way you digest food. It's not just about go to the gym and lift weights. That's not functionality. That's just training to look good. So the conclusion, training should be done first to balance the body. If you train functionally, you look good anyway. Tell me one gymnast who doesn't look good. They're ripped to shreds. They're lean, but they don't sit there doing crunchies. They're just functional to look good. If you look at pole vaulters look fantastic, but they don't do pole vault to look good. As a byproduct of being functional, they look good. Yeah? Bodybuilders, no functionality, they're disgusting. Functional. Yeah? They're just all over the place. So if you train to feel good, you're going to look good anyway. Yeah? And only with a balanced body can you train and not drain the body. Like I said, you don't feel bad, so you don't get injured sitting at home watching TV, but you don't get fit like this. And you get injured training in the gym, if you train poorly. So, sorry. So, that's the end of my presentation. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. And hopefully, you will go and do something smarter, not harder.
So, Warren, if people want to find out more about functional exercise and how to get hold of you, where would they need to go?
And I didn't even put my website on this. WarrenWillamsCoaching.com. That's my website. And anything you guys need when it comes to health, nutrition, energy, breathing, all that sort of stuff. That's what I do. So Warren Williams Coaching.